Well, welcome everyone.
Yeah, I even have the gavel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you want the cat?
No, it has more power than I care to have.
I don't think I've ever banked it.
You've got to wield it.
One time I was.
Wield your power.
I don't think I've ever seen anyone use it.
What?
I don't think I've ever seen anyone use it.
Gary did.
Well, not that one. He got his own.
Oh.
He got that one. Okay, we're good.
All right, it's time to call the planning commission Wednesday, October 16, 2024 meeting in the, what's this room called?
Community room.
Community room. Roll call.
Buck,
Here.
Detmer,
Here.
Freed,
Here.
Meridian,
Here.
Moss,
Here.
Newman,
Here.
Robson,
Here.
Wilmot.
All right, before we do approval of minutes, we need to amend the agenda. So for A and B, the zoning ordinance updates, discussion, and map modifications is going to be postponed because the GIS maps were not ready for this meeting. So I need
I move the agenda be amended
okay,
as such. Second.
okay. Rick made the motion, Charlie seconded it. And all of favor.
All of four or just four?
For A and B.
A and B.
So all in favor of amending the agenda? Aye. Everyone voted for that, right, move on to new business and we're gonna be,
Minutes.
oh, that's right, I skipped.
Yes.
Yes. That's right. So approval of minutes, September 2024 regular meeting, any corrections, changes?
I so moved.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay. Charlie motion to approve, Carolyn seconded, all in favor of approving the minutes? Aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Now we're moving on to harbor condominiums, and I need to ask everyone if anyone thinks they have a conflict of interest.
Madam Chairman, I believe that conflict of interest. I have a direct claim that owns property this event.
Okay. So as a planning commission, we vote to decide if actually a conflict of interest. I'm inclined to think that she lives there but does not profit by anything that happens within that facility that is not a conflict of interest, but I'll take a different point of view if there's.
I'm good.
Okay, is everybody good with that? All right, so you do not have in the planning commissions, you do not have a conflict of interest. All right, so let's review and schedule a public hearing on zoning amendment to 725 Harbor Walk by the villas at Harbor Lodge. Okay.
Madam Chair, members of the Planning Commission, there's an application that was filed to convert some property or some room square footage in the existing buildings to accommodate for condominium units. Best way to explain is if you take a look at the graphic that's behind the technical review paper. It's got the existing floor plan, the proposed floor plan. The proposed floor plan shows where the conversion of the square footage would be for the 4 units. Based on the current code, it states that Lisa and I discussed this rather at length. The current code says that a major amendment is triggered, and the first thing in the code is if it increases density of residential units or increases the total number of residential units, and really that's the trigger, which then says, okay, we have to major amendment, require a public hearing. And then it has to also be reviewed by the PC, and then recommendation to the city council to amend the plan unit development. So the issue before planning commission is, even though you have a summary of the technical review, the course of action is seen as to schedule a public hearing for the November meeting. Do you have any questions?
Albert.
And this might be for next when we look at when we look at the whole thing later. But there's, I would assume, condo association that people have they reviewed this?
If you have the applicant is here, you can probably answer that question.
Would the applicant come forward? Can you state your name, address?
Larry O'Brien, I'm the secretary for the board. We are looking for the ability for the city to approve and we'll go to all the owners. Thank you. And the second step.
The city, and for all of the residents, so residents are gonna be at the court or public
And
hearing.
within 300 feet, we'll have a public hearing.
Okay.
Mhm.
So they will have a chance to come in.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yes.
Is the board constituted of residents and owners? Exclusively?
Yes, everybody is an owner.
I'm just curious as to the why adding these 3 units versus the recreational space that was previously available.
The recreational space is going to end up being moved to the old dining room area. And that currently has got cubicles in it. Nobody uses it on a regular basis. Except once you listen to her podcast.
So you're not eliminating the existing facilities, but
The
you're-
services are still there. Everything will fit in that space. It's about, I think we lose about 12 feet by 30 feet of open area. But all the equipment fits very nicely and it's not squeezed in. It's fine.
Any other questions for the applicant? Any discussion?
I move that we schedule a public hearing.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, Charlie made the motion, Rick seconds it. For our next meeting, we'll have a second. We have to vote. All in favor of scheduling a public hearing? Aye. Everyone's aye. Right. See you then. All right. Moving on to new business. 3B, review and schedule a public hearing on short-term rental ordinance language amendments.
Madam Chair, there's a memo that's attached to the proposed amendments to the short-term rental ordinance, primarily the zoning portion of the ordinance, which is the planning commission, under planning commission prerogative. Since the adoption of the short-term rental ordinances, and now they've gone through a license cycle, there have been some requests made to the city administration or other comments regarding the ordinance and the location of STRs, especially the business district. That there is no change to the cap is 40. And this is the planning commission's zoning issue, is that under the original ordinance, list all of the business districts, but we failed to list the West Office Service District and approval for an STR, and that came up. Then during the council discussion on STRs, if you recall, it was a 3-2 vote approve, and the reason 2 votes that voted in the negative was that 2 of the council people felt that there were existing former single-family residents that were still, some of them were still single-family residents that are located in the business districts, primarily in corridor districts, like along Emma Street, for example, that those people were prevented because of first floor restriction of being able to use or apply for a license for their home. So with that, we were asked, both myself, the city attorney, city clerk was involved because when it's managing the licensing, to add into the ordinance some of these provisions for planning commission consideration. Again, this is it's a combination of responses that we've received plus some housekeeping that we thought was appropriate. I think the biggest part of the modification is under the standards for short-term rentals, which basically says that unless an applicant can establish through public record, work abstract or real estate records, that the first floor of the existing structure was a single family residence, only a lawful single family residence. So we put the provision in there that if somebody does have a single family home, it can document that it was a single family home, and they can show proof it legally through either real estate record abstract or title. There should be some consideration for them to apply for an license. So that was included, reviewed by the attorney. The part was some clarification on grandfather clause in terms of the licensure lapse and revocation. But other than that, that was pretty much it. I city managers here. I don't know, Shane, if you have any other comments regarding it, but I thought it's kind of like a combination of what we've heard in some admission.
No, that's correct. obviously we've had one slide on licensing and zoning, STR updates that we did last year. Licensing, we found a few things that we think could assist us from an inspection with public safety when we try to do occupancy. So we would like to essentially go to a structure, go to an STR location and treat that just like public safety would treat a business when they look at your fire code behind occupancy. So how we'd like to transition that. So there are a few things on the licensing side that we'd like to clean up just from that standpoint. We did also talk about the zoning ordinance, as John mentioned, try to kind of maybe pick off a good issue that came up in the course of the last year. I will say this is ever evolving, and I don't want to waste a lot of planning commission's time on this. I am going to put sometimes it's hard for me to input from city council if I don't put a resolution. So I try to look at, body language is when we're speaking, and like, are council members on board with one meeting or some conflict there? So Monday night, I'm going to have a pretty simple resolution. Do you want this zoning ordinance as written to proceed? I did take this off your agenda, kind of too late anyway. But I really need to get formal approval, if you will. We discussed this, and I thought we had concurrence, but I just want to make sure that it's appropriate to take that next step, planning commission review and schedule the public hearing. Unfortunately, this kicks it down another month, but I think that's probably the appropriate thing to do is to have city council really try to give me that direction of a resolution. Yeah, I think that's probably going to be my emphasis going forward because it's challenging. And then sometimes discussion, well, where does it come from? Well, some of these good conversations happen, but some people forget, and that's those things happen. So maybe documenting those more formally via a resolution is what needs to happen, so everybody knows, and we can pull up the record. This is what was discussed, what the vote was, and so I have clear guidance for staff, and there's clear guidance from city council on how to proceed going forward. So, Madam Chair, I don't know how you want to proceed this evening on this particular item. Certainly, we can take your feedback if you want to give it tonight, or if you're prepared to give that feedback. If not, potentially tabling until we get further guidance from city council is appropriate.
I think as long as they'd like to have discussion and help you,
Sure.
make changes. Anyway, one thing before we start, I referred to the short-term rentals, where you can prove it was a single family residence. That means that something that is a business and be retroactively take back to allow first floor residents, which we don't allow now. So it's a change that you need to seriously consider. The other question for you said occupancy, that the police wanted to do it just based on fire policy and treat it like any business.
Yeah.
So how does the occupancy, how does that change from looking at it by the count of beds actually? How that?
I think initially the concern was that street and STR like a party pad, if you will, which we don't want to have, and we don't want to encourage that. So they were looking at actually two numbers when we were licensing. One through beds, number of beds there, and providing occupancy for that, and then total occupancy based on square footage, which becomes a little bit of a tough number because we can't predict necessarily how many people are going to show up at the residence. I think what we need to convey to the nearby residents around an STR, or just convey that noise issues we had addressed. We have nuisance issues addressed. Call public safety, call 911. We will come out and at that time, kind of do our analysis on how many people are here, the cars that are on the street, those type of things that we need to address. That we can do it case by case instead of having to kind of have a blanket number, if you will. But kind of just, I guess, boils down to trying to go back to a more simpler approach.
So
that is within the code. That's how we're going to determine this number. We're based on that. So that's a slight change from what we had previously.
When you think about a business, because you said it would be true like a business, you can have way more people than you would if you had to provide beds for all of them. So you have a secretary of, the business person, staff. So it can add up to a lot of people during the day. So I'm wondering, how do you square that kind of calculation with the actual number of beds?
Again, that's on the licensing side of that, which obviously is city council's purview. That's something that we'll have to find out. They may not want to go that direction. They may want to go by simply go by the bed count and and use that formula for that, and we're trying to, again, from a staff standpoint, simplify the process and not make it more cumbersome for public safety who is doing other things as well. It's not just they're doing inspecting STRs, they're doing other things, as you all know. So council might not be something that they are supportive of, so we have to iron that out with them.
Okay. So on for the zoning districts for 17-19-1, you talk about trip rentals of, if you can, let's see, let's where we need to go here. So you're saying that they can go through documents and public records, and if they can find a history of it being residential, then they can go to the city, and the city will allow it to use the first story, even though that's a commercial area.
This would not apply, in my opinion, to, let's take an example that we're familiar with. Like over on Mitchell, like next to Cortez Insurance now, there's a house that is duplex that faces Madison entry, and the part faces on Mitchell. They built a shape floor around it, had a shop and a 2-studio, and can you picture the building? Well, that would not comply, because they've converted that into a commercial building. This would be strictly a home that, let's say, he was using that as a studio, but they didn't make modifications to the structure, and then they want to bring it back to the same family. That would apply.
Okay, so look, I had around.
Yeah, just when I think about Rutgers Town, and where Court Insurance was One's Pharmacy, and one time we just lived next to One's Pharmacy before they did their town. Which is, if you think of Kosky Street, south of Mitchell, corner that just around the corner from Mighty Fine Pizza. There's a couple of buildings that definitely were houses, and now are businesses. If you look at Howard Street, south of Bay, there's a lot of houses. You can tell by looking at the structure, they got people that haven't converted to business. I know there's been discussion, one time John said, well, we don't want the first part of Rite Aid to become, to become short-term rental. So I'm having a hard time getting head around how something that wasn't how business has business for. You find a house, probably Kosky is a business a lot of years ago, with house. Well, how are you going to figure those out? I mean, I'm not sure. I'm gonna have the same problem wrapping my head around where's the line, and how are you gonna draw? Like, what's the house, and when you're gonna convert it back to a house and leave the house and give us more housing? I'm okay with that, but you're gonna convert it back to a short-term rental and take away potential housing. I mean, one of the things that this commission board has that I'm watching it is making sure that we have more housing and so I'm concerned that if we're gonna take a business and make it into short-term rental, whether it's housing would be one of the.
Okay, so in the areas we're talking about, they're in the business area. So even though they were house ones, the first one has to be business. So technically, short-term rental, all the business is just retail. And it's a good idea for the business areas to be continuous and be retail. So that's why you don't really want to interrupt it with a house, even though an STR is a business, it's not retail. Rich?
Are we talking about standalone buildings, or are we talking about buildings that are attached to a road?
We're talking about any property that at one time was residential, but is now a commercial district. First floor is required to be a business.
Because I see, if it was a separate building, that was house at one time, an alternative to this, but I picture the same scenario where it's attached to a building that it seems like it should be.
Well, I don't think any building rows currently in our business areas that they used to be.
Well,
Those would be off the table.
let me give you an example. The building that our office is in on 130 Howard Street, okay, that's between, that's right behind, the Citizens, not Citizens Bank.
Yeah.
PC. We're behind PN, we're next to Peter White Architect, that's a house. We're next to that, ours is an old store, 2-story house. Other than the fact that, both floors are used for offices, but there's never been any modification to the outside of the house, it's always been a historic home. There was a house that used as a business that was adjacent to the Pallet Row. You have the Pallet Bistro, and you have that 1-story deal that's home, and the next to it is a white house. Well, that white house used to be a small business inside, It was bought about 5, 6 years ago and converted back to a single family home. I think getting your point, Albert, my office is an example. It's currently a professional for 2 business. If it was converted to an STR, we wouldn't be losing any housing because it was a business being converted into short-term rental. So it's really a net zero in that case. But, you know, I just wanted to do some examples of what people have talked about. Now, if
Division, hey, huge house.
Yeah.
It's all commercial.
now, if from a planning perspective, planning commission, you know, I'm getting the real part of this, I'm not real concerned about like the Emmett Street corridor, because you go down that and it's got a mixture of buildings and mixed use. There's still single family homes that are all zoned for business, either operable single family homes. You want to exclude in this provision the central business district, which is the B3. And that kind of, the B2, that kind of removes the conversion of some of the single family homes that are currently being used for commercial or office back to an STR in the downtown area. But
wasn't that one of the issues there on Rockazoo where that apartment house had been, you know, they wanted to have the ability to make it an STR if they want to.
they did.
And they did. And it's technically a hotel.
Technically a motel, but they exchanged their motel license for 3 SDR licenses.
Oh, they did.
Other way around.
Other way around.
Right. So it's motel. It's
Motel, motel, yeah.
So here's an interesting thing. There are a number of houses that have been converted to business purposes, offices, real estate offices. I can think of a number of examples. And yes, we're all interested in protecting housing, non-seasonal housing in Sumitomo and in the environment. I get that, but that there's also a risk that the owners of those homes, of those buildings, may decide to convert to short-term rental, the financial opportunity that's afforded, and those businesses will be out on the street.
Yeah, those STRs are some of the
So
highest.
in the central business district,
Returns.
central business district, we had an absolute prohibition for first floor for retail, but in some considerations given protecting the office spaces that exist. And this change doesn't do that.
You could add into the change that the B2 district is exempt from
The
the,
B2 district, but that same concept extends, you mentioned the Emmett Street corridor, for instance. There's risk that within the Emmett Street corridor, because they are already known for business purposes, even though they're currently rental, that we will lose potential housing. Potentially, and certainly could lose office space as well.
But you are limiting the number of.
You are, but keeping that limit, and then over half of that limit are residential grandfathered that eventually are going to go away. So there's going to be plenty of license opportunities at some point.
Well, I mean that they're eventually going to go away.
Because if the home is sold or the ownership is transferred, they lose license permanently.
In
According to the
residential
short-term
areas.
rental, in the residential
They're
area.
grandfathered.
in their residential.
I thought they already had the opportunity to renew the license.
No.
Yes.
Not in the
Not in
residential area.
Well, residential, you have to renew every year.
What I'm,
But-
the point is, of the 40 that are allowed,
Right.
23 of them are residential areas.
19.
Right? It's not quite 50%.
The owner is not allowed to
No.
renew the license.
No.
No, it doesn't get, and it
That's
doesn't
back to
pass
the
on,
There's no other forward.
right,
Okay.
and it doesn't get passed on to other family members. So whoever holds it. If they go away, the grandfather privilege goes away.
But any that is in these other zone, SDR zone areas, would be converted to SDR, except for the core limitation.
Madam Chairman,
Yeah.
I wanna echo, some of these, I think it's the importance of the housing, but at the same time, community, we're landlocked, and we have a good number of space commercial or residential, so we also have to balance that to make sure that we are preserving our commercial space. We have a long history track record of protecting first floor commercial. I think we've kind of discussed that and the reasons for that, for a very long time. And this is kind of what we've done to present and historically, and I have some concerns about what's up first floor. I also think about some of the areas outside of Central District where you have primarily, I think about this area where you have sort of commercial chances of this to space, you have commercial space, and by this, then I think to enhance a residential space, we don't really want that to be residential or even not space, we'd rather have it to be also retail some other space. And then finally, I want to make it, I think we just recently passed and expanded the short-term rentals, and it's only been a matter of months. And I like to see us have more experience and a track record with existing before we already start to expand what we have.
Shane, the year as of December?
Yes.
Okay, so we're 10 months. Okay,
What you have to do is that's the argument on any first floor,
well, that's the way,
whether it's in the B two district or others, other B districts.
that's how it stands right now. They're asking for a change. Now, on the second floor. In the list of businesses that's here, and the one that was included that they're asking to include is office service. So if we allow them, I think I'll agree, it's, the central business district is still second story period, no discussion. So what we're really discussing is, and I'll tell you, there's a lot of business. So the purple, pink is office service. The kind of, well, you know what, downtown.
This is ours,
That's
ours, yeah.
We're gonna have to,
I know, but doesn't matter.
I don't have that one.
we'll have to,
It's different from that
in
one.
the future, we'll bring it.
But here you see purple, that's central business district too. And that reddish color
Office
is
service.
the
This would be three.
Threes.
Three. There's purple services.
purple, but it's,
Medium here. Your office service right here. So the transitional between the business district and the residential.
okay, so,
So these are multiple.
yeah, the orange one's
RM2.
almost.
Three RM2.
Oh, it's really different.
Yeah, that one's
Okay,
totally
all right,
different. This is a
now
family.
transit.
B2 is B2A is this brown color. Green family office service is blue is office service. Multiple family, no single family. Blue is single family. Could be B3. With blue, three, same family, the blue right here is the most family.
Oh, okay, R123, R12.
You're the multi family. This is B3 and it only covers the house.
So we area where the business section actually kind of bought residential areas. And one of the things, we're trying to protect our housing, but we're also to protect residential areas and hardcore use. So I think a lot of businesses, offices in particular, are open 9 to 5 basically. Nighttime, there's respite, but if you allow a building that's just dedicated to STRs, that's a 24-hour business, and it can get loud. It can have disruption to the neighborhood that normal neighborhoods, unless they have a bad neighbor.
Under the current ordinance, any of those properties could do it on the second, third floor.
Yes,
So you have an STR next door to a home. Just basically, the first floor portion tends to be a wet blanket for people who want to invest in short-term rentals, because it's not a high revenue generating base, and may not have enough space in the second or third floor to make a business out of it. But they could do it anywhere.
Yeah.
In any of these different.
right, and that's what's left. But I have a question. So on street. So we have. You know what? I can translate. Where is residential? Show me residential. What's the green guys?
This one's B2. Well, this one's actually mixed up. This is RM. This one's BM or B2B. Let me see if I can get this.
Oh, RM is the green.
Well, this one says it's B2B. That's my green. It says RM2. There's a lot in the counties.
Okay, here's my question. Maybe it's specific street.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe two already does. So, can you go back to that? Because we still look at the business sections.
I keep losing it. Hold on. Here we go.
So the business sections are kind of red and dark, the red and rose.
Yep. So this red and this green.
Okay,
So this is B2.
Right,
This is B3.
right. So I'm the burgundy.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So this is special. After, well, and then once you get up past show adding these homes here are your transitions and districts. That's your B3. Yep. And that's a P. So that's
all right, so I'm just gonna go to right now, Grove Street. East of the Zip building, on one side there's houses, they're allowed to be. I was wondering, it's only on the second floor, but there are existing ones on Grove Street that are all floors, I think. So they're gonna, so when that person leaves, they will no longer be able to start on the first floor. It'll revert back to the rules of second floor only. Well, exactly, yeah.
We have a total of 40 licenses that we could have. 19 are grandfathered, that means there's 21 potential licenses at this time. How many applicants have we had for those 21 licenses? How many have awarded since we put in the?
I just group them all together and use the 40 cap. Right now, today we have 3 licenses.
We only have 4.
We only have 4 left,
Okay.
but there's 19 that will go back to pool at some.
Processing 2 currently for the meat condos. That's what we're calling it.
Young and me.
Is that the condos that are built to building behind?
Yeah.
Yes, so they're scheduling like safety do inspection here soon, so those 2 potentially would take it up to 38, so.
Yeah, Up to it.
But we've been there, I mean, we've had 40 for this whole year. And there was concern that those are gonna get eaten up pretty quickly, and do we wanna impact even further, but I think if the market's played out as we thought, and it's driving, so I don't think there's a need to add any more at this point, and I don't, I'm a proponent of that. Do we have any idea how many that translates into? Which for
For the 36 that are like,
nah, I don't,
Sure.
yeah.
All right, so Doug brought up that there was a long discussion, we allowed this, and we had a discussion about protecting business, real estate we have now. So is there any more, does anyone want to test on the other side that we don't need to preserve that?
What do we propose to add first into the mix?
I think to summarize where we're at is that I can't speak for the manager. This is just a reflection of what we have been approached with since licenses went in. Suggestions and possible changes, not advocating it. This is what we've heard and that we're presenting. Council's going to look at the licensing portion of it, and the manager had mentioned the issue that came up with public safety on how to do the right occupants. So they're going to make it, they're going to suggest a change there. These were changes on the zone side. These are policy issues that the plan's got to take a look at and provide council with your opinion if you want to change policy or not.
But isn't it also fair to say that this has been driven by some requests for a short-term license that don't qualify, number one, and number two, they've gotten a year of a couple of people.
I can't speak to that, Commissioner. What I can speak to is that some of the discussions that have come in through the city hall have been examples. I own a family home in one of the districts, which is family, but I'm preventing from using it as STAR. You can't have it on the first floor, and it's the first floor they have kitchen and the living, so it just moves them from ability to qualify for ST. I mean, that's the inferred. Like I said, that's also during the discussion and approval of the ordinance. That was the reason for the 2 votes. There was city commissioners that thought there were single family homes that used this single family business districts primarily being prevented. The people lost their opportunity for an because of the first location. And that's a matter of public record. So, but like I said, this part of it is policy in terms of the zone code. So if the planning commission is not comfortable with it, then I think the manager takes, when he talks to the council about it, he can share that experience with the council. That the planning commission has been easy about these changes.
So I want clarification. You're saying if something is currently family and they want to change it to an SDR in the allowed business districts, that's the only exception for allowing it to become an SDR?
That was the reason for the two no votes, as I understand it. Okay,
But
this provision says that if there is a single family home that's in a commercial district and document that it has been a single family home, prior single family home before it was like used for an office, like where I have my own, that they could put an SDR.
So that's where the gray area is that I don't know how you enforce or how you choose where the lines on that. So first off, you're saying they have to go back through records. Well, how far back?
It's up to them to prove that the building was built originally as a single family home. Some of them were pretty obvious, like my office is on the outside of the house. I mean, it's quite obvious. The interior's been identified to put some office in, but it can be converted very easily back into a single family home. It's buildings where you find a lot of them along Mitchell and on Madison, the other part of Madison, where you have single family homes where they added into like a single story commercial. That would not qualify for this because they've already made the modification to make a commercial building.
Okay, because I was gonna say, I can think of a building on Emmett Street. It's Lily's Antiques. It's kind of a turquoise color. That was always a store on the first floor and living upstairs. So that, in your mind, would not qualify.
Yeah, I mean, you take
because it's built, it looks like a home.
you take a look at the houses that are behind the Marathon gas station on the other Marathon.
Okay.
Almost all those houses have been
Converted.
converted in the front. They've added on
Okay.
1-story box in the front to put in office, and they probably rent the other part of the building out. The way this would be interpreted would be those would not allowed to be converted to STRs because they actually took a single family home already, modified it into a commercial property. Really,
Seems like another difficult thing to try to
Yeah.
document and prove.
So we're not asking for a vote on anything. Have we provided enough feedback?
Yeah, planning and staff.
Well, okay.
Yeah, I add one more piece. We went through this and our role was to make a recommendation to council and then the council's purview to do whatever they want. They can throw out a recommendation, they can change it I don't actually understand why it's coming back to us next time. But let them do whatever they want with it, but let's stay out of it.
Yeah, I believe it be changed. And
We made our best recommendation, they have a recommendation, we've done our
maybe
job.
we should reinforce that recommendation by giving feedback to the council that we don't think it should be changed.
I think our recommendation speaks for itself.
So our recommendation is that, that in the business districts.
Your recommendation, Madam Chairman, is that, if I may, that you don't want to make any modifications to the current code, the way that you've got it set up.
No, if they choose to make recommendations, then they choose to make changes,
If I'm hearing you, right, you don't want to change the zoning part of the STR ordinance.
Right,
But shouldn't we vote to show that it's premature our opinion, but it's something can take it to the council?
I don't think you need to vote tonight. We're gonna be hearing.
right.
Um,
So,
I think manager has enough input.
okay, I want to talk about office service because we were focusing on whether first story is out. But there was also a request to include office service. If we allowed office service at this point, would be on a second story. So what's the feeling for the commission to add office service? The list of businesses that are allowed
With second.
with simple.
I have a question for admin about that, if firearm was allowed in offices.
I don't believe so. It's specifically office use.
Right.
It's not anything. It's very limited on
Right.
the type of use. So no, they would not be.
I'd personally be comfortable with statutory STRs and officers.
I did it through all office service settings, and majority of this pink on mine. Some of them are RM2, but there's generally there are instances where there'll be 3 houses on block that are allowed to be SDRs, and then the neighborhood starts to be hotel SDRs across the streets. So look at it. I think probably everybody doing SDRs, I want everyone else how they feel about SDRs, stuff like that impact the neighborhoods, because some of it was on RM2, but it's mostly business in the office area.
That was treated as a transition between business and residential.
My recommendation would be, we gave this a lot, we're part of this, I think we just pass and let them do what they want to do.
Okay, and I would like to give feedback that the way this is written, I don't think it's not clear how it works it. You have to have concrete lines, and so they are going to proceed with this, but it has to be written.
I also think it really redoing our history of the zone, this could come up again,
Yes.
so.
Oh, you're absolutely right, Carolyn,
It might be premature.
Yeah, it was successful.
Until that's done anyway.
right. All right, so I'm gonna open up to the public if anybody would like to comment. Okay, Marshall, state your name and address.
10:15, Lisa. So I'm really happy that I'm here and I heard a lot of your comments because as a member of the public, I was very fraught when I went to the council meeting and heard this and had read language and didn't understand where it came. And the concerns I have, and I guess Mr. Angela, you said, if a building has been then it doesn't qualify. The language doesn't say that. The language says it's formerly. So what does that mean? Does that mean in 1896 it was a residence? Or in 1950 it was a residence? It's very nebulous. And the other thing is, you're going to have a business that now can accommodate 14 people, and you only require 2 parking spaces. You have to look at the parking requirements for sure. So that wasn't even suggested. It said it should come, but I think you might even have to change it. And then I was also confused because you kept on talking about their house was used as a house, but we're also in the business district about businesses that were formerly 100 years ago homes. So again, confused.
And the requirements for short-term considering after going to spots. So I don't look at if everyone's going to end up having trouble there. We adjust the parking requirements. It's 2 parking spaces enough. There's 4 others. Or you got 3 SDR in the same building, which actually did it. 2 parking spaces per individual SDR.
In this town where I was before this is a jail. As you have to, it's all you found most places. So anytime you look at right, there's no requirement Wall Street party in the suburbs.
That's correct.
So if you also take all these restaurants that have that was you can find the value of the house. Again, I'm concerned about posting this. I am concerned about it. It's an neighborhood house. Okay. I will say whatever. Jesus has the people coaching rules again, so somebody not invested because it's going to take a lot of process. And I just said and see very minute change or minute.
It was interesting here, and I know the situation where there were some single family homes that were potentially the investor convert
into SCR, so that would.
The other thing, I know, I was looking at all of this, of course, and I know Grand Rapids have allowed for businesses in commercial districts. If they're different houses, they're not paying children. And you keep on saying, there'll be several council people who are, very vehement to housing. They don't want, really, you want more housing as long as. Okay.
So we're on to public comment. Public like
I just wanted to get on this. As the members of the commission probably understand, the sign committee membership consists of Cynthia and myself, Commissioner Vaughn, and Lisa. And are being advertised under the Meetings Act in order to welcome transparency so that any member of the public can attend, any other commissioner can attend this design committee as well. Minutes are taken and they are made available. The reason for the current review process is assigned to come through, or the review process, is because of the 2015 Supreme Court that requires that ordinances be content neutral in most circumstances. In addition, it's pretty clear, I've only been sitting on the Senate committee now, it seems like years, but it's only been months. It's clear that the existing sign ordinance needs help. It's in intensive care. It's confusing. It's all over the map, and it just needs simplification and clarity as well as optimization. That's a good justification for this review. In addition to the Supreme Court content, the previous a lot of track changes. Those track changes have been enhanced by giving them to the planner, who has reformatted them in a more logical order that are the addition includes basically some article and bringing it to a chart instead of the article that used to be. So I think the committee has made some progress. In addition, Cynthia's request, we got hold of the Michigan sign by addition to January 21 and provides us with guidance as to what acceptable sign ordinances consist of moving forward. In case, I wanted to give you this review and some outline so that you're informed. But it's interesting to note that in subsequent discussions recently, the sign committee, while it is selected by the chair and consists of at least 2 planning commissioners and another, which could be a member of the business committee, and it has been a member of the downtown business district. It is not technically a subcommittee of the planning commission. And the ordinance is separate from the zoning, and therefore, when we complete our work, while we love to have recommendations from anyone that cares to contribute, including the commissioner, our work will go directly to council for consideration.
I don't think so. I think we will present it to the planning commission.
Not according to the planner.
Really?
The sign ordinance is not a zone code. It is a plural ordinance, which goes to the council. They're the ones that hold the public hearing.
Interesting. Well,
I didn't want to create an expectation
Okay.
that this body would have an opportunity to formally review. Personally, I think it's an input that might be good, and therefore, if you wish to participate in that way, if you would be kind enough to get at least like John's, that information may be to consider.
Ordinance or make recommendation to accept that consultant be ready to be writing the ordinance.
We did make a recommendation to city staff that a consultant be engaged to help us completely rewrite it, considering the volume of material and expertise that's required. And after due consideration, John's participation in reformatting it is the negotiating session.
Okay. We've got that forward then.
Well, if I may, I be a member of the sign committee, I was looking at that, it's part of my comment, or by my comment, Commissioner, I want to keep it on prize. I had also expressed some uncomfortableness with the reminder of the committee's expertise on the subject matter in the legal nature, and urging these third parties, some form of third party expertise to be brought in there. We were encouraged to kind of down the path that we are. I felt like it was important to have some of a discussion, guidance from key stakeholders as the planning commission or directly the city council that would be in agreement with the steps we're taking, so that we don't go down this path only to determine at a later date that, hey, maybe we should have more arguments on front end with legal counsel or third party experts. And so I think that was one of my goals tonight, was to kind of raise this issue up here to keep the planning commission informed, but perhaps, it would be better to keep city council informed of the trade-off that we're making in terms of not going with a third-party experts or and that we are relying on, our own expertise to make these changes.
Now, that having to be clarified something before we get off track. These are our commission comments, as it's all being members of the committee. This is not an open discussion because it's not on the agenda.
The question, I can reply to a formal request to the sign committee, do we do a review?
I had a conversation with Charlie on this, and I can step back. I haven't been a lot involved. But my take on it is that the ordinance that we're operating under has been in place for at least a decade. And maybe I haven't been informed, but my understanding is that there has never been any litigation against the sign ordinance. And the way the sign ordinance has been set up is as a request for variance, they go to the sign committee. That appeal is vetted, and sometimes sign committees have an arrangement, sometimes they. My opinion is, always has been, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And what's happened, I expressed to Charlie, was I was informed the sign committee purpose for revising the code is to go through, basically delete out anything that not meet the sign provisions relative to litigation, case the very signs that the reason for the Supreme Court decision. So the sign committee is, I thought, a pretty good job of finding it. So with that being said, I'm going to check the confidentiality and temporary sign code and just reformat it, get rid of a lot of funky graphics that are in it. The next step would be, eventually, the planning commission would take a look at it. It's not your responsibility to hold a public hearing, but you could give comment on any potential revisions. But then at that point, the administration would send it to the appropriate legal counsel for review and comment before it went to public hearing in front of city council. So from my perspective, that's how I thought this was all work out. So I was under the impression, and Madam Chair, correct me if I'm wrong, that we were looking at a reorganization, retooling of the sign.
Your description is exactly right. Addressing the temporary sign issue and getting it content neutral. What's confusing is, where's the line for content neutral? So I'm going to do something from the guidebook that'll be standards, and we're going to go through it with those standards and then decide in or out. And then it should be right. I have no intention of going in and re-looking at size, light, other than refining light to be updated for the kind of light we have now. So size, all that stuff, it works. And you're right, we don't have problems. So there's no reason to reopen all that.
No, and the standards that you've been using, I think, have been appropriate. Because you can tell that the city's got some pretty nice sign stand. In fact, we don't have pole signs, freestanding monument style. And then the sign that the signs downtown on buildings are very tasteful. And, they're within context of the building. And I let Rick and in his group, when he's with the downtown review committee, has a pretty good handle on that part of it as well. But if the city's attorney, which is Cooney, doesn't have anybody on staff, they got quite a stable of attorneys that's familiar with sign. There are a couple of firms in the state that have somebody on staff that's familiar with sign review, and I'll make a recommendation to the manager, maybe bumping a code to. If Plunk and Cooney can't do it, there's a couple other firms that can do a review. So you have outside a third party legal review of the sign because I'll use Supreme Court case.
Okay, let's see, Albert, you got a comment?
I want to apologize for not being here last time. The sad thing was, I couldn't the whole discussion because I got here to take. It was busy. That was about the audio that was in this room. So I'm concerned, especially when we're doing zoning things and the on stuff, review, tape. So I think that's something, so somebody could at least listen to me. It won't take you long to discover that it wasn't very high quality. So
was that the September 18th?
Yeah,
meeting?
September 18th meeting.
Because I went back and listened to it, and it was very clear when it was the planning commission. But you said, how deep to get into it?
I was like, and I thought maybe it was my internet connection or something, or people said, it's let me listen to the city council, which was 2 nights before, and I listened to the roundtable a lot, and it was perfectly fine. So maybe it is, if it is my system, then I'm probably going to figure it out. I think it needs to be reviewed to make sure the public can hear it. I was not on the agenda tonight, so maybe is it? I don't know. Can I send something out to officers? I have okay.
No,
you can send something to Lisa.
And then she can. Okay.
Yeah, but we communicate.
All right.
Together.
Just the names of it. I published because I know it's on the last agenda. But the content of the 3 things that were discussed last week, the content of suburban, walkable, and flex, the content of names of. So maybe you had discussion of that.
That's why Yeah, that's why I saw dash. I think the commission had talked about that at the
Yeah,
meeting.
we worked out-
So I can send comments to you, John.
Yeah, you can design, you can send a copy, Lisa. Okay, that way we'll have copies.
Okay, any other commissioner comments? Were we to say anything about our last meeting? For zoning committee? Last time we met, Ted, do you want to do that?
Yeah, we reviewed Articles 8 and
11.
11, which was general, one was the introductory, 8 was site plan review, and 11 was the
ZA.
ZA, right?
And
We had it discussed here, and, we had redlined, a few corrections and changes. We made a few, I would say, minor changes. And John had said at this point, and all that would be going to city council, be posted on the website,
Right.
realizing that this is a Word document anyway, so it wasn't gonna keep coming back in circle. So everyone, I think, was encouraged to, if you're not on the subcommittee, to always look at, there's gonna be a slightly changed draft, but a few little changes will be posted like that. And then I just say, comments, look on it, so much. And I worked on, worked on new sense. The PUD, PD section, we were talking about extensively. I talked about this. And then, we did,
Land development,
development options, and, condominiums. And
manufactured housing and cottage lots.
So then there's a meeting on October 29th.
Yeah.
Again, of the zoning committee, and there's, I think 3 sections we're working on the land developments and a couple more. We're gonna, general provisions and overlay districts. We'll see if we can get to them.
Yeah, so number 10-5.
And we had 6 residents that attended the meeting.
It's 6.
We had 6.
There, let's see, what do we have now? Please send me out there. Okay, this meeting is adjourned at 6:16. Thank you, everybody.